So, Mark, we're going to be hearing from our own Beth Rigby later.
Yes, she's been with the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and the question I wanted to ask Beth about this football playing Prime Minister is he any good? But, I forgot. But the good news is one of the cameramen here, Michael Hurd, he's seen him play, and his verdict, two left
It's
feet.
golf he needs to play, then he can get really in with the president. I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews.
And it's Wednesday, the 18th of June, day 149 of Trump's second term. And on Trump 100 today, could he authorize the assassination of Iran's supreme leader? He says he won't for now. We'll have all the latest on Trump's increasing involvement in the Israel-Iran conflict.
And I'm in Canada, where the G7 leaders are drifting away. They've announced sanctions against Russia, an effort to tackle one world conflict, albeit undermined by the absent president, distracted by another.
So, James, the last time we spoke, Trump was unexpectedly packing his bags and leaving Canada, where leaders of the G7 are meeting, as you say. He left to fly back urgently to Washington. Since then, things have only become more tense. We're now at, I think, the most pivotal moment in the Middle East for decades.
Yeah, on the face of it, Mark, things seem to be moving rapidly. Trump certainly is. He had his long, premature flight back from Canada last night and was straight onto Truth Social.
Yeah, it really feels like this high stakes game of diplomacy is being acted out, played out on social media. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, the latest thing we've had from Trump at the time of recording is a post saying he knows where the Iranian leader Ali Khamenei is hiding. He said he's an easy target, but he's not going to kill him, at least for now. Seconds later, he put out another post in full capital letters saying unconditional surrender. For me, it reads like a kid playing his PlayStation, Call of Duty. Never mind a president contemplating war. But he is a president and he is contemplating war, and as such has to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and I've been fielding questions from our colleagues in the studios, the TV studios in London through the day. What's going on? What does he mean? What's he going to do? Of course, the answer is genuinely, we don't know. What we do know is that he has had a meeting with his national security team inside the Situation Room. That is the meeting that he came back to Washington to chair. Officials are now saying that at that meeting, he considered a range of options, including a possible US strike on Iran. James, it's standard that the president, any president in such a situation, would be presented with a spectrum of actions that they can authorize. And as the snippets from the meeting have suggested, they would have ranged from do nothing at one end of the spectrum to literally get the B-2 bombers in the skies to drop the bunker busters on the nuclear sites, or even take out the supreme leader. And I think intentionally the president is keeping everyone guessing. It's no accident that this situation is so difficult to read and the whole world is left wondering what Trump will do next. I do think we're witnessing Trump's extreme version of maximum pressure diplomacy. It is his way of acting out the art of the deal, his version, I guess, of statecraft, and it could go any way.
Yeah, and it's all playing out very publicly, isn't it? And there is that curiosity around Donald Trump, which builds in an uncertainty in terms of what happens next. On one hand, you have this unpredictable leadership, and then on the other, you've got the Iranians.
Oh, very good, James. Always finding a way to make us smile somehow. Anyway, on a serious note, what are Donald Trump's options? Well, short of actually taking out the supreme leader, assassinating him, the most likely of the serious options, I think, is to activate America's B-2 bombers to drop these bunker-busting bombs on Iran's nuclear facilities. They are the places where Israel have said Iran is close to having produced a nuclear weapon or a few. It is, I think, no coincidence that some of these B-2 bombers, these massive planes, were moved last month to the UK-US airbase at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. That places them well for a sortie or two over Iran. It would be a big mission. It would require refueling planes, but they are in the right part of the world. At the other end of the spectrum, James, is to give diplomacy a chance. There are reports tonight that the Iranian attacks against Israel have lessened a bit. Is that out of necessity? Are they no longer capable of firing missiles? Or is it a strategic pause by the Iranians? Are they ready to negotiate? There have even been suggestions that a meeting could be possible between Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Iran's foreign minister. So, as you say, he is keeping all options on the table. The spectrum is wide.
Yeah, that pair, they're no strangers, are they? The US and Iran have been speaking for weeks about its nuclear ambitions. And, it does remain an open question as to why the issue hasn't been resolved in that time frame. Tulsi Gabbard, the National Intelligence Director, she testified as recently as March in Congress that Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon. That had been the conclusion of the intelligence community. Now, Trump was asked about this on his flight to DC. His answer was, I don't care what she said. I think they are, or they were very close to having one. So, all sorts of questions. What's changed? Where is the evidence for it? And I tell you, another thing in the minds of many will be Iraq, 2003, weapons of mass destruction that, of course, turned out not to exist. To this day, that darkens the legacy of George W. Bush, and that won't be lost on Donald Trump. Somebody else we've heard from is J.D. Vance, the vice president. He's been on social media, Mark, yeah?
Yeah, JD Vance in a moment, but just to your point, I do think that the legal side of this may well be interesting over the days ahead. The extent to which America can justify joining, legally, I mean, under international law, can justify joining Israel in this fight against Iran. There is a legal question there that I think might be an issue in the days ahead, to the extent that Donald Trump worries about the law. But there we go. JD Vance, you're right. Interesting intervention from him, because remember, domestically, Trump's MAGA base, the people around the country who voted him back into office, many of them, certainly younger MAGA supporters, are of the view that faraway wars are nothing to do with them. And Trump won by telling them that he wasn't going to get into any foreign faraway wars. And so enter J.D. Vance with, I think, a bit of massaging of the narrative, trying to perhaps ready the base for what Trump might do. He effectively reminded people who were reading what he was saying that Donald Trump has been consistent. He's always said that Iran can't have nuclear weapons, that this could end the easy way or the hard way, diplomacy or bombing, and that ultimately Donald Trump has your back. He effectively said, I'm paraphrasing, and you need to trust Donald Trump that he will do the right thing. I thought that was a really interesting intervention by J.D. Vance. And it's not just the MAGA base across the country. I think Donald Trump is being pulled in many different directions. Among his political and media allies are some real skeptics. Tucker Carlson and Martha's friend, Marjorie Taylor Greene, to name two of quite a few. All of them hold influence. All of them do not want Trump to bomb Iran.
Mark, just listening to that and listening to that roll call of people of influence in this extremely dangerous situation, the thought comes into my head, if you'd listened to this a year ago, who among us would have thought that Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene were the power brokers in a situation that ultimately could involve all of us in a very dangerous situation? Now and again, you get these moments where you think we are in strange times indeed. But listen, I'm here in Canada.
I thought you were going to say, listing those people of influence, I thought you were going to say, where's Martha? Because we haven't seen her for a few days. We can reveal, guess what, listeners? Martha's on holiday.
That's you know what? Martha doesn't take any more holiday than the rest of us. It's just that when she doesn't. We report it on the podcast. Sorry, Martha. But listen, speaking of Sky News icons, I bumped into one today. Beth Rigby, our political editor, is here in Canada. She's come out, obviously, with the UK Prime Minister. So we sat down, Mark, on the sofa, and we just chatted all things Canada, Starmer, Trump, etc., etc.
Well, the first thing I should say to you, James, is having lived in Trump world for 48 hours, I really need to go home, because it's absolutely a whirlwind, is it not?
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, it just turns on a dime. You think you're going one direction, there's a handbrake turn somewhere else. So I am now beginning to understand a bit more why Keir Starmer says as little as possible publicly about Donald Trump and what's going on at any point, because you never know which way it's going to turn.
Because he doesn't want to fall out, yeah?
He doesn't want to fall out. But look, going back to yesterday, Trump comes with Starmer brandishing his folder.
That was the world's most excruciating press presentation photo call. I mean, absolute, that was some show.
Look, we knew that this US-UK trade deal, and just to be clear, it was agreed in principle back in May. And then Trump has signed this executive order, which is beginning to enact some of it. It's not a full trade deal, it's not completed, but man, it's a moment for a prime minister. You know, he's the first one to get a deal with Trump, and Trump opens the folder with his, you know, with his big black marker, and he just drops the thing on the floor. And then Starmer has a dilemma, doesn't he? So he gets on his, you know, bends down and he picks up this this very precious UK EU deal, which then in the following sentence Donald Trump called the UK EU deal. So it was all a bit. It was a bit awkward.
Yeah, tell me about interactions between Trump and others, because we've had the German premier. We've heard from him. He was having a chat with Trump. Different takes between him and
Well,
the
James,
UK Prime Minister.
this is what's so fascinating about what's going on here and this summit, because Tuesday morning, Trump's now left. There is a G7 communique, a statement from the leaders, a joint statement on the Middle East. On the one hand, it says that it wants de-escalation in the Middle East, including a ceasefire in Gaza. On the other hand, it reasserts Israel's right to defend itself. It reasserts that Iran is the real risk, and it reasserts that that Iran must not have a nuclear weapon. You can read that statement whichever way you want to read it, I would say. I think it had a lot of nuance. You've got Chancellor Merz on the floor above us doing the German broadcast round. Simultaneously, Keir Starmer is with us doing the UK broadcast round. And these two leaders gave completely different interpretations of what they thought Trump was up to. So what's going on? What is going on? My interpretation is, well, one, Keir Starmer doesn't have a clue, but I think given his personal relationship with Trump, having the meeting with him and then the dinner, I think that he's just really ultra. He probably did have a better sense, but he's ultra cautious and he's trying desperately to take the temperature down. And what happened to Macron last night? I mean, Macron got totally defenestrated by Trump for saying that he was going to go back to Washington to seek a ceasefire deal. So I think basically Starmer's approach is say absolutely nothing about Trump publicly. Do not in any way open up any sort of rift that could cause Starmer a problem.
What about Trump's departure? Before we got to the business of Ukraine, before Zelensky turned up, I mean, you know, he avoided what could have been quite the confrontation.
The thing to say about that is, but for the G7 as well, for the G6 rather, like, I mean, Ukraine, they wanted Zelensky here. They wanted Zelensky to talk to Trump about how he might get more munitions and what he could do to secure a deal there. They really wanted Trump to agree a package of economic sanctions on Putin, because effectively it just strangles his financial war machine. And of course, Trump's been talking for months about sanctions on Putin. He just doesn't seem to, you know, and he kicks off the conference. I mean, you would have watched that. You probably covered it, right? With the Carney. I mean, what did he say?
Well, it was everything short of "Where's Vladimir?" You know, Russia should be here.
You know, it was a mistake to kick Putin out. You all sit here talking about him all the time. He's not at the table.
Not for the first time. It's a script that couldn't have been written better by Vladimir Putin himself.
But I mean, and you can imagine all of these European leaders absolutely, you know, like squealing, like toe curling. That's perfect description. But look, so then Zelensky's on his way. They're all trying to orchestrate a face-to-face with Trump. He last had one at the Vatican at the Pope's funeral. He doesn't want to have one. He definitely doesn't want to do the sanctions. And so he buggers off early.
To summarise, Beth, what's your assessment of this summit? Success for the UK, I suppose, but overall, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think from a UK perspective, it has been, I'd actually say it was a mixed bag. Yes, the UK-US trade deal, but no on Ukraine. And really, for the UK, the priority is trying to get Trump to the table in a way that he will basically be on the side of the Europeans when dealing with Russia and Ukraine. And he's still not really aligned with it. The way I put it the other day, James, is really there's sort of three world conflicts, and the Europeans are trying to bind Trump in on them and struggling to do so. And then on trade, they're also struggling with him. What do you make of it?
Underwhelming, isn't it? I mean, it was always going to be underwhelming. The very fact that they didn't have the normal structure for the G7, that they were not aiming towards a joint communique, they could see trouble down the line. So it was all managed around Trump, and expectations were managed down around Trump. But of course, very briefly, because we don't have too much time, Beth, speaking of Trump, you had the first question to him
Oh, yeah.
at this kind of mini presser.
I think it was your question that I just read out.
Well, we spoke about it, but hey, what was the secret? What was the secret? The bright jacket?
Yeah.
Why did Trump choose you?
There were two things going in my favour. One, I was standing right at the front in the middle.
Always.
And two, I was a vision in apricot. So I did my tactic, which was I wore a really, really loud suit.
All right. Okay, Beth Rigby, I'm off to dig out my apricot suit
Yeah,
for the next time we speak to Donald Trump.
You can borrow my yellow one. I've got a yellow one too. I only ever get to come on when I've seen Donald Trump. There's a high bar for this bloody podcast. You don't get on if you ask Donald Trump a question. I mean, blimey.
Let me give you a firm handshake. Thank you very much indeed. Great to see you, and safe journey home.
Yeah, well, when
long
you
journey.
come back to the UK, you can come on Electoral Dysfunction.
All right, that's a deal.
We'll let you on as an honorary man.
Yeah, well, a bigger sofa, hopefully.
Well, there you go, James. Sounds like you've got an invitation onto Beth's podcast. What about me?
Oh, I don't think she could afford your transfer fee, Mark. And listen, there's not room for two of us on that sofa, let me tell you. But yeah, good catching up with Beth. And you can find it, of course, on Electoral Dysfunction, another a stablemate of ours. But for now, that's all we have time for on today's episode of Trump 100. Thanks for listening. And if you want to get in touch, you can do so at Trump100@sky.uk.
Yes, send your questions in, and do tell a friend if you're enjoying this, or indeed Electoral Dysfunction with Beth. Harriet Harman and Ruth Davidson. We will see you tomorrow for another day of Trump 100. Bye-bye for now.
All the best.